it comes down to the dangers of some of the things that are in our diet, but in particular, it comes down to something that you should all be aware of. You should all know that is not good for you, okay? This is something that's actually really interesting when you look back at kind of how we got to the problems that we have today with sugar, okay? So a lot of you hear me say sugar and you probably, your heart probably sinks a little bit because you know that you should eliminate it from your diet, or at least significantly reduce sugar intake and consumption. You also know that it's not good for you, but you may not know that it's highly addictive. It's something that triggers the exact same pleasure centers in the brain that cocaine use triggers. This is one of the reasons that I think, and that a lot of people think, that sugar should really be looked at as a drug in a lot of ways. It creates and triggers these pleasure centers, and is really addictive. Not to mention, it's a complete nightmare for people that have autoimmunity, Hashimoto's, any type of blood sugar dysregulation. It's inflammatory to your system. It's a very dangerous, very dangerous. I mean, it's really works like a drug in the body, guys. That's why so many people can't get away from it. It's so hard for them to eliminate it. So really interesting is when you look at it, the recommended consumption for women is 25 grams or 6 actual teaspoons of sugar per day. Now I'm going to tell you guys, you don't want to even consume that much. That's just my we see that all the time working with people one-on-one, that reducing sugar significantly or eliminating it is one of the best things we can do. Now, this is the recommended allowance for men, is like 9 teaspoons per day for men. I'm telling you, it's still too much, guys. You want to really try and not use any added sugar in anything. And then the other thing is, like, well, a lot of times people don't realize where they're getting it, or they consume a lot of fruit juice. Now, a really funny thing, it says, to me it's laughable because I've been exposed to this, but you may not know this, and that's why we're going to share it, and that's why I want to point these things out to you guys. There was a study that found, and it was funded, here's the deal, it was funded by the grape juice industry, okay? Was funded by them. It shows grape juice is good for the brain. Okay. Now the thing that's crazy is that grape juice has 36 grams of sugar per cup. Now I just told you that 6 teaspoons was 25 grams, and that was the max limit for a woman. 36 grams in 1 cup of grape juice is horrible for you. And when you talk about the brain health, this is a very good example of science that was funded by a specific industry, and the researchers obviously knew it. Okay, they obviously knew it, or they knew that they were being paid and funded to do it. So when you're paid and funded to do things, sometimes researchers will come up with results that are favorable to the people that paid them to do it, right? And if you don't believe that's real, you've never done research. And I hate to tell you this, I've done research, and I know that we could have lied about anything we wanted to. No one would have verified that unless they go through the research and they try to repeat the study. Now here's the thing, this is so blatantly, obviously skewed and biased, and minimizes the negative outcomes and maximizes any kind of positive outcomes. This is a good example of research that's bought and paid for by a group that has interest in specific outcomes. And the researchers did what they followed the probably the unwritten and unsaid rule, but they knew who funded it, and I guarantee you that well, let's leave it at that. Okay, there's a lot of that goes on, so you've got to look at bodies of research and more than one paper, and you know, really, I'm not saying that the layperson needs to do this, but you know, one of the things that really has to be done is you have to learn, especially like as a physician, if you're looking at a lot of different types of papers, to identify studies that have good methodologies, and they're put together, and they're the statistical analysis and everything that you look at is done well and done correctly, so that you get usable information. And what you really want to have are a lot of papers that support the same thing done by different authors and different researchers. So anyway, they said that this 36 grams, that this grape juice, a cup of grape juice was good for the brain. Guys, if you've heard me talk, you may know that there are 5 types of diabetes, okay? Now, this 36 grams of sugar, this cup of grape juice, is not just bad for blood sugar regulation and is not just something that is going to create problems for diabetes, type 2 diabetes. It also is not going to be good for the brain. Do you guys know what type 3 diabetes is? Alzheimer's. You can just Google it. You can look through through the scientific literature. They reference Alzheimer's as type 3 diabetes throughout the scientific literature. So if anything, this grape juice is probably going to be really bad for the brain. It's definitely going to drive inflammation, which we know drives and is one of the main underlying drivers of neurodegenerative conditions like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and dementia. It's not going to be good for the brain. I'm sorry, that's my opinion, but it's definitely not going to be good for the brain. I mean, one of the things that you guys can do, to just eliminate this, and you should know this, a lot of people know this, but you need to really implement it if you haven't. You need to eliminate all sodas. Even the artificial sweeteners, the ones that have aspartame or Splenda or whatever else added, get that stuff out of your diet. That stuff is garbage, quite frankly. I'm not an advocate or proponent. I'm not an advocate at all of any type of artificial sweeteners or of drinking soft drinks ever. Like, there's just so many problems with them, and they create a lot of issues. You're never going to be healthy if you're drinking that stuff. You're never going to be truly healthy. I'm sorry, you're not, because the artificial sweeteners have a lot of problems. They create a lot of problems on their own. The sugar is just it's a poison. It's a drug. It's a poison. It's going to create major problems for your health. Now, another thing that you need to know is if you are autoimmune or you have diabetes, type 2 diabetes, or you have a history of neurodegenerative conditions, Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, if you have any of those problems, and you have children, your children are going to be more susceptible to developing those problems as well. So you need to protect them, and you need to keep this stuff out of their diets. You don't need to give them soft drinks, sweet tea all the time. You don't need to do that stuff, because it's going to take a very, some people will become addicted to things very, very quickly. And so all it takes is being exposed to sugar a few times, and they're addicted to it. It's just like some people, that if they try to use drugs recreationally, they get addicted very quickly. So it's something to protect your children. Think about your children. Think about your grandkids. Do not give them this garbage, because you're going to create problems for them, okay? And if you are struggling with autoimmunity or weight issues or neurodegenerative problems, sugar is going to create major issues for your ability to recover, and it's going to promote these issues, okay? It's going to promote these problems, because sugar increases insulin. Insulin's inflammatory. Insulin will drive the autoimmune processes, and it will create a lot of issues for you. If you want to be healthy, you cannot consume this stuff. And you know what? I don't consume it. I don't miss it a bit. It's actually, when I read stuff like this and I start learning more about sugar and the lobbyists that have paid for research 50. You guys know 50 years in the past, like 50 years ago, this came out. It was actually in the news. Sugar industry paid lobbyists to fund basically science, to buy off researchers, to say that fat was the cause of all the obesity and everything that was going on, and the explosion in obesity, and minimized sugar's role. That's when you started to see all this fat-free stuff that was taking off. And the 80s was huge fat-free movement. Everything had carbs in it. They stripped out all the fat and added sugar, and now what do you have? You have explosions in all these disease processes: diabetes, dementia, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, autoimmune conditions, cardiovascular disease, you name it. We have explosions in this problem. We see childhood obesity now like we've never seen it. It is at epidemic levels, and a lot of this was bought and paid for by the sugar industry, and they funded research and got the researchers to say what they wanted them to say. So this is a huge, huge issue. So anyway, let me give you guys some tips on things to do, okay? So these are a few things that you should be doing to help yourself, really to improve your health, to improve if you have Hashimoto's, autoimmunity, blood sugar dysregulation, neurodegenerative conditions, really just to have more optimal health. A few things you can do. Eat a lot of different types of vegetables every day. Eat whole foods. Avoid processed foods, wholeheartedly. Get those out of your diet. Do not consume processed foods at all. I'm just telling you, you consume processed foods, you're introducing foods and additives that are going to be detrimental to your health. That's what's going to happen. Eat healthy fats. Eat plenty of healthy fats, guys. Fat is not the problem, and I hope you guys know that by now. Avoid or minimize sugar, junk foods, sodas, and juices. Just like I said, juice, sweet tea, all these things where they add sugar, just get that stuff out of your diet altogether. When you start feeling better, you won't miss it at all. You will not miss it at all. And when you drink it, and you try to drink it after you've been like sugar-free for months, you'll realize that it's disgusting, that it actually tastes bad. But it's really easy to get, really quickly get addicted to it again. So be very, very careful. Other things you want to do is you want to exercise daily. Exercising, doing something, even if it's just starting with walking. You need to move. If you don't use it, folks, you do lose it. And when I say that, I'm talking about not just... Here's a great example. If you've ever seen someone, if you've ever broken a bone, right, and they cast it, well, did you know that the 6 weeks that it's casted, you lose muscle mass and strength, but your bones also atrophy? That's disuse atrophy. So because you did not use, and you couldn't use the arm because it was isolated and immobilized, you could not use it. So that causes you to atrophy in the muscles and the bones to get thinner, the muscles to get weaker. You start using it again and it starts to recover, right? Well, guess what? If you don't walk and you don't use your body, if you don't think, you're not constantly challenging yourself, your brain will degenerate, your body will degenerate. So you've got to move. Movement is life. If you're not moving, I'm telling you guys, it's degenerating your body and your brain. You've got to move, okay? And then something that's really not emphasized enough is that you need to really work on as many positive experiences as you can. You need to work on finding opportunities to have positive experiences, because when you set up daily positive habits, whether it be something that is even if it's like exercise, but really what I'm talking about are social experiences. If you can focus on having better and as many social interactions and positive social interactions as possible, it's very, very helpful for your brain health and for longevity. We know that people that tend to live into their ninth decade, so they're in their 90s. If you look at their life, many of them maintain their mental capacities well into their 90s, and that's because a lot of that is related to good habits and good social networks, and then also diet. It's diet and lifestyle as well, but the social interaction is something that's found commonly in all of these people. So you want to maintain that, okay? That's something that you really want to do, and if you don't have that, then you need to find like-minded people and start having those types of experiences, okay? So anyway, I appreciate you guys a lot. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day. I'll talk to you again very, very soon about another topic. But guys, help me help other people share this information, because so many people don't realize this, okay? So hope you guys have a wonderful day. Talk to you again very soon. Thanks.